I believe sound has information in it. It's encoded with information. And that information affects people in real ways.
There must be a way to get beyond individual feeling and intuition to the expression of some universal truths through music.
Well, he gives a lot of books on Egypt, ancient Egypt.
If Plato got this from the Pythagoreans, who got this from Pythagoras, who brought this back from Egypt, then how does this knowledge relate to Egypt?
You studied a number of relationships between the gods. You might start ending up with very interesting
Well, that's what we've been trying to do.
harmonic interplays.
All these proportions break down to musical intervals. The hard part is going from concept or from, for example, astrological influences to number.
In the symbolism of numbers, we have symbolism also. Yeah?
Astrology, prayer, so-called magic. These are technological modes. We're addressed in a certain way.
You know, like the computers reading astronomical stuff. We can't read astronomical stuff all that easy. What does that mean musically? That Mars is right ascension, such and such position. So you really got these different languages. Some words are rhythms. Can you actually speak like a language with the drums?
It's a drum language.
Drum language.
There's some kind of way they're figuring out a system so that people can relate. Brazil, Cuba, Haiti, parts of Africa, I had to go to these places to learn what was happening, and also south of India. In these cultures where black people went, or got taken, what developed in the United States of America was very, very different. In Jackson Park near my house, I used to go out there in the summertime and practice outside. And while I was practicing, there would be these bees. I don't know what kind of bees you call them. While I was practicing, they would come around and fly around, and I would notice the flight patterns of these bees. You'd swat at a bee, and the bee would just it wouldn't really fly away, but it just sort of would zigzag to the side, or do this kind of like zigzagging motion where there was a lot of motion, but it would be all in the same space. Wondering, well, what if somebody can play with that type of motion? What if somebody can play with that type of rhythm or with those kind of shapes of melodies melodically? This idea was the basic idea that led to pretty much everything I'm doing. This whole idea of symmetry and balance, dealing with gravity and melodic gravity and harmonic gravity, is based on that whole orbiting idea and that whole spatial concept, a way of seeing space and combining that with what I hear. This symmetry thing was my first experience in that kind of vision. And the musical idea directly came from the inspiration of these beats. I noticed the cats were playing similar things, more or less the language was coming from Bird, Sonny Rollins, Coltrane, and people just had their personal versions of that. But one thing that I noticed that by listening to Vaughn and Bunky Green and cats like that, I listened to cats that nobody else listened to, So I started concentrating more on those influences and more on my own, trying to bring my own things out, And I kind of got that from Bird and Arteta, because they would always talk about copying from cats that were obscure. The fact that I came from Chicago and that there were some local cats here that nobody really knew in other places, I'd use that to my advantage. So I would play things that, actually came from Vaughn and cats thought it was me. Or they put, like, oh, it's a Steve Coleman thing. But I would tell them, I was like, this is some Von Freeman shit, but they would just say, who's Von? thing about Vine is that he even took what Bird did and went another level with it in terms of like some of the knowledge. And it wasn't the same thing that Train was doing. It was like a different route. You know, Vine never stopped playing tunes. Right. So he just kept developing the whole thing that Bird was working on more and more. It got deeper and deeper and deeper into that one aspect of things, you know, until he became a master of what I call voice leading. You know, I mean, his whole change thing.
Oh, okay. So you all played together with Sun Ra.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
And that's when he was giving, Sun Ra was giving us the books and everything.
Now, you were with Sun Ra before Gilmore?
No, I think it's around the same time.
What books you talking about?
Well, he gave us a lot of books on Egypt. Ancient Egypt. And he had these old books where you had to turn the page real slowly because the page was going to evaporate. Yeah. and nobody knew where Ra got these books.
Yeah, Ra was something else.
So that's when he told me, he says, listen, he said, I'm going to give you your names. And but then he told me, he says, and you're going to get your name. I said, what name? He said, you're going to get it. Well, man, you know, at that time, this back in the 40s. Now, you know when that name came to me? Just like he told me.
Oh, yeah?
I was working at a club called Betty Lou's in 1971. I'll never forget it as long as I did. He said, the voice is going to come and give you your name. And I'm looking at his eyes. And then in 1971, I was working at Betty Lou's. And a voice spoke real loud. Got loud because the song shook me. Said, Ikimoke, Bofara Sadiki. And I immediately thought of Ra.
That was the name?
Yeah. So then, and I even tested Ra, man, because Ra called me one day. He said, did you get it? I said, you know one thing? I said, yeah. I said, now I know this cat. You know. I said, yeah. I said, do you know the name? He said, of course, I know his name. He said, I sent it.
Oh, man.
I said, you did? I said, what's the name? He said, oh, you're testing me. I said, well, I just know he ain't gonna come up with this name. He said, Ikimoke Bofara Sadiki. I said, boy, from then on, I believed in him entirely.
Tradition I try to follow out of the music that's being made by black people in the States. I mean, there's one tradition, but within that tradition, there's different streams, you know, and there's sort of been a creative tradition. If you follow, for example, Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, you know that line, and that's more the line that I try to follow. And with that tradition, there's been a steady movement back towards African roots. It's my theory what we're doing now would have actually happened before if it wasn't for this whole embargo thing. Because I think that what Dizzy and them started to do would have been completed probably in Coltrane's generation, had it not been for everything closing down, because this was right after the Cold War and all this fear of communism and all this stuff kicked in. For a long time, I've been checking out a lot of non-Western music, especially music from Africa and the Caribbean, South America. Our music is like directly influenced by that, but not in a way where we're trying to necessarily copy Cuban folkloric music or something like this, but in a way to try to look at the things that are underlying the concepts. I think that when you get deep down into it, a lot of the things are very similar.
Señores presentes, oigan bien.
He said, people, listen up.
Señores presentes, oigan bien.
People, listen up.
Soy cubana y me gusta el guaguancó.
I'm Cuban and I like the guaguancó.
Llegar aquí a nuestras costas los españoles encuentran a nuestros aborígenes, los indios, que siendo una raza muy débil, al ser sometida a la esclavitud, a los maltratos, muchos mueren, otros se alzan en armas, otros se suicidan. Es decir, que a mediados del siglo XVI está casi completamente extinguida esa etnia. El español comienza a importar brazos del continente africano y así vemos que por la zona central occidental de nuestro país, lo que se conoce actualmente de Villa Clara a Pinar del Río, penetran de Angola, de Mozambique, de Camerún, de Togo, de Nigeria, las distintas etnias africanas. Entran los Yorubá, Lucumí, entran los Bantú y entran los Arabá.
Que sean la una, que sean las dos, que sean las dos, que sean las dos, que sean la una, que sean las dos, que sean las dos, que sean Que sean la una, que sean las dos. ¡Mambe! ¡Yo!
Vengo, garabato, vengo.
What's interesting about the difference of what happens here and what happened in the States is that in the States, the drums were taken away completely.
No singing, no dancing, no
they discovered that the slaves could communicate with each other with the drums, or at least they thought they could, and that was enough. And so they took away the drums and the singing. As a result, people just adapted themselves to the instruments that they saw in the marching bands and in symphonies and things like that, which is why you have people playing saxophones and trumpets and all that in the early days of New Orleans. But the slaves still had, African people still had their way of looking at things, even if they didn't have the actual instruments. And so that's where the music comes from. And though when you have Louis Armstrong and people like that, they're playing very differently because of this. I hear a connection between the music that we do and the music that they do. But the difference is they kept more of the African things directly related to Africa. They're deliberately trying to keep more of these elements, these traditional elements and everything, so it's staying closer. In our music, we're playing Western instruments, but we're trying to get at that sensibility, so that's one of the reasons we came here to collaborate with them.
Different members of the African diaspora from different parts of the world, coming together and assessing how they've moved on since they left Africa and what differences have been made.
El africano creó la sociedad en 1836, en el siglo pasado, y el objetivo principal era de ayudarse uno a los otros. Todo en el IREM, tanto el baile como la rama, podemos decir, van diciendo algo, dicen algo. El IREM tanto con los pies como con la rama, dice está hablando de su condición, de espíritu, ¿no? Porque el IREM es un espíritu.
what I end up doing is focusing in on what the song's Yoruba meanings are. You know, I have people translate and describe for me what particular Orisha they're singing to and what the meaning of the song is and what the song is meant for. And so what I end up getting is just like a brief history and definition of the music, and then I can go from there. You know, it inspires thought, that's all. But I appreciate it, you know, it's part of my history that I wasn't allowed to keep.
La religión yoruba, Lucumí, está siempre está adornada de pataquines. Cuando hablamos de pataquines son historias, ¿no? Entonces cada historia narra, ¿no?, un hecho que tuvo X ocha, que es X santo, ¿me entiendes? Entonces por ese X santo él representa, ¿no?, con movimiento, eso es danzariamente, con movimiento, lo que está hablando en ese momento el canto, la historia que te representa.
Oshun en Cuba es la dueña del sexo, del loro, de la coquetería. Es como el oricha, la mujer bella, que muestra eso, el amor, la dulzura, todo eso.
A certain rhythm is the representation and sound of a certain Orisha. How was that initially developed? I mean, we know that. How did those rhythms come to be the representation for this principle? How does it change over time?
El tiempo es dame un segundo, no se puede ir
Is that 6'11" or 6'4"? I'm sorry. 6 is yours? Okay.
That's a pickup. Even though he's saying this beginning, it's a pickup.
Pickup. It's the beginning of the one. Pickup.
The beginning of the pattern.
Yeah,
but it's a pickup to one.
Just realized that.
It's like that, go.
Having two musics which are arriving at a certain place, both going towards the same place, you know, but they've got their two different ways being combined together, you know.
just some cross shit, I guess. That's all it is. Well, in other words, if you think of it from my part, they're just
sing your part by itself with your beat.
Do that.
Forget about their downbeat, because your downbeat was supposed to be the same as theirs.
No, but I'm playing in 5 in terms of my rhythmic
Yeah,
transposition.
right. But it's still the same tempo, right?
No, it's not the same. It's not on the same downbeat.
This is the way they do it.
Right, that's what they at.
Here's where you're at.
Oh, okay.
So far, I've been just kind of helping playing clave and helping cats here, and identify names and rhythms and ones and fours and whatnot.
It's been, like a threefold process of just trying to get their rhythmic sense, and then find out the science of what they're doing, and then, creating music and rhythms that would fit with some of the stuff that they have, and then, vice versa, they're doing, doing stuff that fits with what we have, and then just trying to come up with something that works.
Working with Afro-Cuba is like discovering some old roots, and I appreciate it. It helps me to understand a lot of the things that may have been left out with African Americans being brought to America and Africans being brought to Cuba. They retained a lot of their heritage.
Matanza. Que en casa regalado un penthouse. Y digamos, The Blaze, todo, Matanza. Belleza, The Blaze Alolá, The Blaze Rumba, Colombia. Y no hay problema. Corazón. Aprenda a regar tu jardín, jardinero. Aprenda a regar tu jardín, jardinero. Yo soy Quirino, el agua lata y fresca. Yo soy Quirino, el agua lata y fresca.
Pero aprenda a regar tu jardín, que no se marchite la flor. Que no se marchite la flor, que no se marchite la flor.
Aprende a regar tu jardín, que no se marchite la flor. Y el folclore matancero más matancero, de matanza.
Sí, de aquí.
Claro, de aquí, de
esto es la cuna esta.
De palo, de yesa, de arará, de olocu, de macuta, de guaguancó, de yambú, de todo eso. Todos esos géneros es de aquí, matanza. Y aquí, matanza, se cultiva bien lo que es folclore. ¿Cómo matancero es?
Jóvenes los que lo mantienen.
Lo que lo mantienen, pero todavía folclore prevalece.
No se ha perdido.
No se ha perdido, no, ni se va a perder tampoco.
Estoy seguro, mientras que
Se va a
yo
perder.
necesita yo.
Y yo también. Igual.
Tengo que morirme para...
Claro, ya cuando vaya...
Y cuando me muera,
vaya
mi hijo va a
Sí,
enseñarle.
igual que yo. Cuando nos vayamos, vaya en Tonú, sí, ya, sí. Mientras, aquí, folclore de tiempo. Pero dice que nosotros somos trascendientes de africanos, ¿no? Que la cultura que hay aquí en Cuba es africana. Nosotros, como juventud cubana y como juventud religiosa, y como juventud que somos tamboreros los dos, quisiéramos ir a África para ver cómo son las costumbres.
He's saying that some words are rhythms.
Yeah.
The same.
Yeah.
Like,
Some names.
There are some names. Or, can you actually speak like a language with the drums, or is it the same, or just a little bit?
Par exemple man wala suma frère bi bu génnoon tey ci biti dem soxla ma bu ma amee tambour soxla ma pour dem dabi ko pour woo ko ñu soxla ko fii pour kenn dem woo ko non non damay tëgg sama nom de famille suma sant su ma ko tëggee su ma tëggee sant bi dina xam moom dina ko dégg dina xam ni bàkk naa ko wax naa santam quoi et mën naa def mata moom mooy gaawal waaw tu vois moom mooy gaawal par exemple dañ ciy wax suñu biir et ay ragal bu sonnee daw wala ñu bëgg la saaga tu vois lépp am nañ ko ci suñu sabar
Se puede también decir la frase y el batá en la conversación entre el ya y el litótele, también de la frase, decirlo también con jugando también con el batá. Comarita la de ochun, llegue, comarita la de ochun, comarita la de ochun. decir la frase.
Sin decir la frase, pero se está sintiendo. ¿Se entiende?
Entiende, sí.
This rhythm that they're playing, the structure.
Maybe you clap the clapping.
Okay. The structure of what we're doing. The structure of what he was doing was a little different. Okay. It kind of cut across the rhythm that they were doing. Another kind of. Explain his position. Explain how you hear it.
Afro-Cuban musicians who play this very religious music are holding on to something that was taken away from them, or that was stolen. Something that's been forgotten or has been very cherished because it had to be passed down amidst all these forces that were trying to take it away from them. African culture that was preserved after the Middle Passage to the slave era, this Yoruba-based stuff that they do, the words that they sing that they don't really understand that well in Yoruba, and these sacred rhythms that are associated with different orishas. This whole lineage of this tradition that's been really grasped onto, people are really holding onto it to try to maintain some sense of Africanness. These guys sing rhythm, they just live this thing. They don't have to worry about holding on to it or anything. It's just all around them.
Sing Sing Rhythms. Et Sing Sing moom moo jàngal sum ki jur sum papa Daouda Faye et Daouda Faye jàngal sam papa donc ñu ngi ko jëlee sum papa quoi mais léegi affaire bi lenn la quoi aada la ci deret la nekk même suma doom man duma ko jàngal tamit by force day dóor day ñëw waaw te mi ngi tëgg donc aada la quoi lu nu moom la lu nekk ci deret bi donc boo juddoo ci kër gi boo doxee ci suuf si sax da ngay tëgg waaw don la quoi boo xam ne dafa nekk ci ñun.
that something that they're doing as a traditional rhythm for them, or is it something they're doing to adapt to what we're doing?
The name is Yaba. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Rhythms from Saint Louis. Everybody know this rhythm. Everybody dancing. You know, the grandfather, grandmother, everybody dancing like this. Right.
De Cuba, que es una de las provincias más ricas en folclore. Ahí hay batá, yesá, arará, olocun, cosas que no se conocen, que son africanas. Pero bueno, o sea, la música ha ido, tú me entiendes, evolucionando y eso se ha perdido. En Cuba, en Matanzas sí todavía se está tocando, sí.
Cuban rhythms, they have, it's a bit Senegalese rhythms, like sometimes, you know, when this guy is playing, I feel myself.
Blues is what I rhythm, portray, and blues. That's what I got rhythm, yeah. Sometimes I got blues in my mind, say we got rhythm, yeah. That's what we be having when we got the blues, yeah. That's what I be singing is rhythm, rhythmatic patterns of when I gotta be blues. That's what I have for me, I say rhythm.
The thing about slavery though is they didn't just come over from Africa in one stop. They had these islands that were like sort of ports, you know, that they would bring slaves into in the Caribbean, and then from there they would be auctioned off to different places, and a lot of the European powers were involved in that. You know, if only one European power was in control of a certain port in Africa, you know, then how did Europe of slaves end up in Haiti, Cuba, and in Brazil when that's three different European powers?
Yeah, that's 400 years of trade.
Rhythm, that's what I be to the blues. That's what I sing sometimes. I got rhythm, rhythm. That's what inspires me to say my rhymes this way. I got blues. That's in my past, so what I be singing my songs, but drinking them all along. I got the rhythm, rhythmatic patterns, Lord touching me. Back to my history blues. That's what I sing about triangle trades and the ways that I was laid in the grave and rhythm. That's what I got to use when I got blues on my mind. Sometimes I say the rhythm keeps me from crying when it makes me wanna holler. Good Lord, the mighty dollar blues. That's what they got, that's what we have, that's what we need. They try to make me laugh, but my pain comes out in tears. I say blues like Billy used to sing about strange fruit. It's my people used to hang from trees away down south, but up north, of course, you know they got a plan for us. Can't think of us in there. We busting out each other, brother, sister. That's what we need. Just a little bit of rhythm and blues, not this baby. Please, Lord, can I get in your drawer sometimes? And that dick behind makes me when I fall for you. What about her mind? They don't know about the rhythm and the blues that I might sing. Sometimes you gotta hum it sometimes. That's what they used to say in the church was his word. Here it is again with the rebirth of rhythmatic patterns that I might have. I say the blues makes it swing around the signs of Saturn. It's rhythm, blues. blues, 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 blues.
I could go back to Yoruba tricksters. You know, I could go back that far. I'm not saying I have a deep understanding of exactly what the Yoruba trickster thing is all about, but in terms of the spoken word and the words spoken to a drum and stories being told to a drum, I know that came from Africa.
DJ, y'all. Who's that? On the right, MC Light, MC the light, raw top light. When I can change my style to the broad daylight. For you and yours, for you and yours. I put it back like applause, never pause. I can go on and keep on and keep on when I got to get rickety raw. The DJ, funky fresh. Remember that, without that, lyrical slugs. That's it again, DJ, from the dust. Can't tank us,
You got to take forms of music. And since it's all music, I mean, and going back to what he said about the Yoruba tricksters, we're taking that voice and we take those African drums and we saying this is our message. And I don't care who wants to say it's valid or not. You can't say that it's not dope. It's dope.
Break the eyes, break the flow. How we do and where we go, where we flow. We it on the low. The mercy, the blessing. All around us, the mercy, mercy, my the blessing. I didn't touch me. I don't even know I keep it down with the best in my record. Nobody keep it on the numbers. It puts up on the record with. They know I be in it with the punchlines, the 5 pounds. I break for mine, I get mine. All the time, record, but take it, the record, when I take it on the river, I give them when I set it up, better, so flip it, so business, they don't wanna get with the rhymes that I was playing, it's insane to keep it open in the membrane, and I know where they at, where they go, where they be, where they flow, where they be. High to fly, but not to find my words are flowing, how they know when I'm rocking with Sophia, how mighty.
We have the greats of our time. You know, we have, you know, the KRS-Ones, the Rakims, and we have the originality that came out of hip-hop from the beginning. And you have the originality of the jazz musicians that came out from the beginning that were really willing to try to push music beyond what it had ever been. And so here we are, you know, some younger guys trying to do the same thing. For me, if you just wanted to be the carbon copy guy and make some loot, then you could do that. But that's not me. That's not art to me. You know, to me, that's just replication. So I would much rather try to push the envelope than be like everybody else.
One, two, stop. Here it is again, wait a minute. Start to drop, coming off the top. Coming off the top of rhythm and patterns. Here it is again, when I got scales. Here it is again, when the stars scale. Here it is getting fat like the well, beast on the well, it is on the beach. Here it is, stop. Play.
Just speaking in terms of MCs, I know we're on a lot different tip. I mean, a lot of kids freestyle, but we've had shows where we had people sit in. It's like as soon as Steve started playing and that beat ain't 4/4, it's like kids is lost. They be like, I'm trying to find the one, and they're like, don't look for the one. You just be up here by yourself. You'll be the one. You'll be the only one.
The full fleet take you back to Africa, but not on a boat, but off your feet. Definitely rich to both the fleet, cause you know the rhymes is sweet. So I break them down in perfect grams, making sure the rhyme will last. Cause I give them a round of it, breaking them, making it so that I don't fake. Cause when I grab the microphone, you feel my narrow path through your soul. So I let it go. So I check the rhythm and I am out. Check the rhythm, check the rhythm.
in these cultures where black people went, or got taken, what developed in the United States of America, it was very, very different. The music that the Africans developed here in the United States was very different than everywhere else. People oversimplify and say, well, they took away the drums. But it's a little bit more than that, you know. But still, what they developed was very, very different. They took away a lot more than drums. So you see more similarities between like what's happening in Cuba, what's happening in Haiti, what's happening in Brazil, and some of these other places, you know, where large amounts of slaves went. You see more similarities because first of all, there's more hand drums, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more of a hand drum singing, clapping, dancing kind of thing that existed in the States because all that was like stamped out. what convinced me about most things is in the end whether it works or not for me. I have to feel some kind of way that it works, whatever way I do that, you know, whether it's mentally, spiritually.
Since it's agreed, it's understood that the cosmos is rhythms, and that has been broken down and defined by way of a number of different systems. Music is rhythm, and other people have made these connections in music of the spheres, this sort of thing. There must be a way to get beyond individual feeling and intuition to the expression of some universal truths through music. Being able to tap into these universal truths, basically, as expressed or as indicated by the planets and by the various numerical systems that have been used to express cosmos, and to connect into those in such a way as to be certain, to be able to feel certain that you are actually connecting to a universal truth in your musical expression.
Sound has information in it. It's encoded with information, and that information affects people in real ways. There's actually 3 ways that I've found so far that you can approach this thing. Actually, did I explain the rhythmic thing to you? The first one is just you turning words into rhythms, put it that way. Okay, that's the first thing. It's just from word to rhythm, you know, using the Kabbalistic thing as a translation. The first one just involves, in this case, having a Hebrew dictionary.
I saw you freeze up. He's like, they go do. Okay, let me show you something. They go do that, do that, do that, do again, do that, do that, do. They go do that, do that.
The second thing is thinking of a concept, something you want to say or something you want to visualize and project and everything, you know. Finding the words that are symbolic of that, you know, and then turning that into rhythm. And the third thing is what I call the astrological method. It's dependent on what's happening in the sky at that particular time or at whatever particular time you pick. The end result that you have of all 3 of those things, I say, is the numbers. How do you get the numbers and what do they symbolize, you know? To me, the hard part is going from concept or from, for example, astrological influences to number in a way that you feel convinced about, because all this stuff is just a matter of how convinced you feel, you know, in the end, because it's all could be said to be arbitrary, you know, I mean, even if it's ancient, you know. So it's a matter of how convinced you are that you are actually doing what you're doing, because that's what's putting the power into the whole thing. That's what gives the symbols their power. Otherwise, a triangle is just a triangle. It's a triangle, a line. Chance, you want to write for it? It's a triangle. She pretty much writing your shape now. Triangle. 2 triangles and a square.
It's like a clock, see? It's like a clock where certain wheels go this way and another one goes that way, and then one goes this way up here, and it's all connected.
other thing I want to explain is a lot of times we play off of a pattern that's only implied as opposed to playing the exact pattern. Like for example, Sean's part. You know, it's an implied thing that he's playing that's in the head.
But yeah,
but it's not actually being
not
played.
actually playing the pattern, but the pattern is the basis.
Yeah, correct. So that's in his head.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you do with 3, 5, 7? How do you conceive it?
3, 2, 3. He's thinking in terms of long beat, short beat.
Yeah, long beat, short. What's the total composition?
So
Is it 16 or 15? 15, right?
It's 15.
15. 15
Yeah.
was divided. What the way in which I heard, or probably they would have heard, is 3, 5, 7, or 5, 3, 7, or 7, 5, depending on where you start. Exactly.
According to the long and short beats, it will be 3, 2,
Yeah.
3.
Okay.
3,
Okay.
2, 2.
Okay, fine. So that they would immediately think it as 3, and 3, 2 as 5,
Right.
and 3, 2, 2 as 7. See, that's the kind of a 7 beat cycle everybody is used to. So they will listen to the 7 beats. So it's a composition. 15 is a composition of 3, 5, and 7. They can immediately conclude. That could be the cycle of Kala. Symbolism of numbers. We have symbolism also. The 8 is it's a balancing number. 7 is a very important because 7 days a week, so it's very important. 7 stars, so it's related. Cosmically, it is related.
Show me how you work out.
This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Wave,
7, 8.
And it never changed.
Yes, it's still.
No, I mean, it
But
stays
the whole
the same.
concept is the squeezing in the 5s or 7s or 9s within a framework of 8. Yoga is not just exercise. It is a yoking of the body and the spirit. So
Binding together.
Yeah, binding.
Yeah.
That's what yoga is. So what we do when you look at them, what they showed, for example, doing tak it, tak tak 7, tak 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 it, tak tak it, tak tak it. So I'm doing 7 here. I'm saying taka tak it is just a rhythm for this. And then I'm trying to combine. It's yoking of these 3 elements.
I understand the syllables that they're singing. What are these syllables that you're doing with the rhythms? Is that some kind of tala syllables or something like that?
Yeah, this is normally this takita, takading, all these syllables are part of the vocabulary of the drum.
It's a drum language.
Drum language. I look at music as a powerful center for us to dialogue, not any other language. It goes deeper inside. Even as a conditioned experience. Many of our cultures do that. Although there is a potential to go beyond the condition, very few artists develop that capacity.
favorite ones. Get on a Steve Coleman rocker.
Is it bebop or what kind of jazz? You wouldn't say it's connected with bebop style at all.
Well, yeah, it's connected because it's an extension. You know, I mean, if not for what you call bebop, I mean, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today.
For me, I have to be very close to my tradition because that's inspiring me to have the meaning when I dance.
Is it a special kind of music you get inspired, or anything you have not heard, not that much, but exotic things, you know, which you have not heard much? Does it inspire you to bring any special kind of image at the
Like
school?
just to come and dance?
Like your music, for example?
Yeah, for example.
Yes.
If we do something, would it inspire you to?
Yeah, so if you want to play now, we
I'll
can
see.
see.
Sitting here in India taking a straight beat. You're taking beatings from the roaches, the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes every 5 seconds, they carry like malaria and shit. I realize what you have to go through to do things like this. it's not about going to make a record and just laying down music. It's about actually experiencing a true beat. In order for something to be done, it has to be done through somebody. So it's important because it might inspire people and all of that. You know, there's actually something positive that might happen.
Musical ratios are the determining factors of the human form, and by extension, all forms. Again, goes back to all of those ancient traditions. To the Aboriginal Australians, the universe is sung into creation. In Egyptian, there's a created by the words of Ptah, furnished him by Jehuti, or wisdom. It's connected to acoustics and to the understanding that frequency creates form, and creates it according to specific harmonic proportions and ratios.
Basically, what I've been dealing with is
creating certain vibrations through structure. I had it in my head that the music that I wanted to play, I wanted to base that on a different concept of tonality than what was presently happening. I realized that I didn't even know what tonality was or how the concept of tonality started. And so my search for tonality is what eventually led me into all this stuff. Let's just take something that everybody knows, like the thing with Plato, okay? Now his whole system of proportions and everything, which is definitely Pythagorean, his whole system of proportions, his allegories, I think one's called the Critias, one's called the Republic, one's called the Timaeus, one's called... The Timaeus is a story about creation, basically. It starts off with this explanation of the creation of the soul and the structure of the soul. But it's like a lot of things at once, political, and it's very musical. The musical part is kind of hard to deal with because if you deal with the musical part, you have to deal with the mathematics, and of course that scares most people. How it breaks down mathematically in terms of music is in terms of tonal information. So the numbers that I'm getting ready to talk about relate to tone. And I do think that this is a key to the way the ancient Kamites thought, and so that's one of the reasons why I started studying this. There was no numbers given in this thing. It's all given in words, and then you have to take those words and create the numbers. But basically, it was given in terms of ratios. He began the division as follows. He first marked off a section of the whole, and then another twice the size of the first. So there you have what can be considered 1 and 2. Okay? Next, a third. Half as much again. Next, he filled in the double and triple 3 times. They call them treble, the first. A fourth, twice the size of the second. Inserting them in the gaps. Fifth, 3 times. So that there were 2 mean terms in each interval. Okay, here's the key. Now here's the slick shit. 1, 2, 4, 8 intervals. 1, 3, by cutting off further sections 9, and inserting 27, them in the gaps. 48. One exceeding one extreme and being exceeded. On the other side, 6. By the same fraction of the extreme. 18. 54. Exceeding. 162. And being exceeded. We did that 2 times, 6 times 12, got 144. And this is the one that's complicated. Instead of this, okay, you have 6, 8, 9, 12. The ratios between these terms are 4 to 3, 9 to 8, and 4 to 3. And that is the point. The basic structure of the soul. In musical tones, if the first note were C, that would work out to be this. C, F, G, C, which is the opening phrase of Coltrane's The Love Supreme. It produces some other proportions in there too. And basically it comes out to be like a musical scale. But really, even though in the beginning it sounds like he's describing music, then he goes on and describes the structure of the solar system. He's describing all this stuff in other terms, but he's equating this to the structure of the soul. What I was interested in is how does all this stuff relate to ancient Egypt? If you assume that what Pythagoras was teaching, he did get from Egypt. He spent a reasonable amount of time there, 22 years studying. And it's reasonable to assume that most of what he's teaching, or maybe even close to all of what he was teaching, came from ancient Cams. Plato got this from the Pythagoreans, who got this from Pythagoras, who brought this back from Egypt. Then how does this knowledge relate to Egypt? And that's one of the things that I wanted to check out and try to see in what form was that taught in all these, you know, lion-headed and ibis-headed gods and all these myths and everything. And then that's a stretch. The most obvious things were these proportions themselves. Do we see these proportions in ancient Egyptian stuff some kind of way? Okay, so that all brings me to the Lubitz and West. I found a version of this Platonic knowledge in the proportions, or this Pythagorean knowledge in the proportions of this frieze. But what I was particularly interested in is how these proportions yield these same proportions that Plato was dealing with. All these proportions break down to musical intervals. So I guess it would be easier to explain like this. 3 to 2 is a perfect fifth. 4 to 3 is a perfect fourth. 6 to 5 is a minor third. 10 to 9 and 9 to 8 are both tones too. The minor third and the perfect fourth together form this 9, 12, 14 and a half, form the proportion of the golden mean. The golden mean is something you find throughout Africa, and this particular thing forms a kind of what Westerners would call pentatony, which is also something that you find throughout Africa.
When you know that the temples are consecrated to specific principles, what are called gods, but really understood better as cosmic or planetary or organic principles. When you know that the temples are consecrated to those principles, the different temples to different principles, and that each has its own geometry, and each of those principles are connected with certain numbers, you've got an idea, and you know that the building is, as Goethe says, frozen music, literally, not just metaphorically. Then you have a key as to why they affect different people different ways. Since the principles, or the gods, as it were, are the most basic of the most basic element in the cosmology, that if you studied number relationships between the gods, you might start ending up with very interesting
that's what we've been trying to do.
Harmonic interplays, or even look, for example, look at the myths in terms of what the, Set killing Osiris and being brought back to life by Isis, and apply the numbers and see what you get out of it.
Well, that's exactly what we've been trying to do. Well, in my own mind, I relate this to Egyptian gods. Basically, each god, they call Neter or Neter. Each Neter would have a structure. There's certain structures that deal with certain things, and there's metaphysics behind it. Like Set is symmetrical structures, Basically, that's any intervals that are equal around a certain point. So Set has this whole symmetrical thing happening, and Set's the lower mind principle, the physical world, all that kind of thing. Okay, so then Ma'at is the golden mean type of thing, and that's a certain kind of balance. The different ones have different principles. Each Neter would have a certain melodic structure. If you think of it as melody, but it could be harmony, it could be rhythm even. Program looks in a certain window of time, and it's looking for certain structure of phrases. It compares the incoming intervals to the Neteru constructions in real time. So it depends on how we wanted to respond. In other words, it can respond with chords or with melodies. The computer will perform with my band on June 11th, and we are now giving the computer a personality, a musical personality. That's the hard part. We're giving it the ability to be able to make decisions, to think, to create, to respond, to play. Becomes a band member. Why? Number one is really controlling when the dates come out of the computer. The first time span also spits out the second time span. However, the player that's playing the second time span has to wait for his turn to play that. Yeah, you all follow me? Tid, you follow me? The computer is going through dates. All days. Dates, and it calculates position of planets and stars, and it creates.
Mira para ahí. Locura. found there is that there was sort of a curious divergence with this sort of idea that somehow the African American musician was to perform a certain role with regard to technology. That is, to be deliberately ignorant of it, so as to not to sully the pure spirituality. You know, but that's simply a role. We don't have, no one needs to play that role. And that just seemed to me it was a role that was assigned by a group of people, by somebody else, or by people who were really unaware of the technological impact that African people have already had. It seemed to this sort of romanticizing of the faux primitive type thing.
Ultimately, it was nature that got me into this, because it was by trying to associate these bees and birds with music in the first place that led me in that direction. Ever since the bee experience, my goal has been to look at nature with my naked eye and to be able to grab musical information out of nature just by simply looking at it. But I don't mean from inspiration. I mean actually looking at it and seeing the musical information. So nature being anything, so I'm starting with the sky and stars and everything, but I'm gonna work my way down to earth. And one thing I think the Egyptians were doing was that they had this view of nature, this understanding of nature, that was such that they could construct things, and the evidence we have of this is mainly in the monuments and buildings they left, in their texts, I guess. But they could construct things in such a way as to have the properties, and in some cases even the functions, of things that they find in the natural world. Not only on the level of what's on this planet, or on the level of the material, what we can see and everything, but also in the area of what exists in this universe in other dimensions. And there must have been a reason for them doing this, for them looking at all these functions and properties and everything. And I believe that the reason was that they were trying to project the same kind of essence. They were dealing with the subject of life itself.
Wow. Now, checking with the purpose to break it down while I give her the break. Ain't space, face, got see, face, living, bees. How you wanna mess with me and I break it down with the rhythm? They best to know who I be when I get it down with the best of the best. I better put it back in the air where they supposed to holster, hold back, where my hat be at, break down. I can see the rest of my abilities, what they wanna do when we see overseas with the best of see Coleman, showing and proving my doing best of the flow. Best to know when I break it down and under typewriter, razor, lyrical bass, I stay paid with the thoughts, keep for support. Whatever I caught when I got the direction, flexing, passion, why you blessing? Busy like Joe Pesci, mindset, speed the flu. Beautiful like the Louvre, but I'm big like the Alpha Tower. Power, the lyrical lipid, the business, the bitches. Wanna get with it while I be keeping it. Vexual, ecstasy, sexual. When I rhymes effectual, using my mind to check you. Best in the 5%, the lava then. Best to bit, define the dance. They with the rip for my gift. With the best of my minds, applying for the bigger from behind. I got him all stuck what we be when we rock on the microphone. Best, manifest to put it to rest. The best, the blessed, and what you want when we start the grand. Have the whole crowd staring right here. Big enough, BMG, why we be and where we go and what we go and when we flow, we keep it down. How you want to when I represent. Best the bit, the dent with God, the earth, the 5%, the best. How you wanna live when I live into my lungs, the fun when I get it done and what we are on with the best of yes. What you wanna do when it's weed, I less. What you wanna do when it's fun, I less. Keeping on the mind, the tips, the bits, the flips, the get to wits, the words of praise. Taste the face, the dates, the blinks, the face, the bars, the face. Black and when I be got 'em all. Say stuff, let's more. How you know when I got 'em like that? They know when I get up on the eye and eye, the fly, and why am I on why side? On the boat, the flows to be my body. I search for me, bleed the blessed. Manifest, give it the rest when I bless the death, confess the death to put it to fall, drive like cars. What they wanna do when we fly superstars? Break down, put the possess the getting jaws. How you wanna do when I be pulling down girls' drawers? Eyes are surprise, break the vibes, the eyes advise, the way to flow. How we do and where we go, where we flow, we keep it on the low. I the mercy, the blessing. All my rosters, I love mercy, mind the blessing. I didn't touch me. I don't even know I keep it down with the best in my record. No, I can keep it on the numbers. It's of a record. They know who I be. Hit them with the punchlines, the 5 pounds. I pray for mine, I get mine. All the time, record, protected, detective, the record. When I take them on the rhythm, I give them when I set it up, better, the flippers, the business that they gon' wanna get. With the rhymes that I was playing, it's insane to keep it open in the membrane. And I know where they at, where they go, where they be, where they flow, where they be. How to find the fly when I define my words are flowing. How they know when I'm rocking with Sophia. How I'm out of here.
uso la misma estructura de la armonía, cambia.
But if I use a tumbao and I put the harmony, then it will change.
Sería esto entonces.
So it will be like this. And adding a melody to this.
La misma armonía.
No, it's the same harmony.
Lo que cambia es el ritmo.
What changes is the rhythm.
En vez de ser
Instead of this, then you do this.
el ritmo es lo que cambia.
What the rhythm was what they wanted to change.
Y el tema sobre la idea latina.
And the theme of the Latin idea.
Ahora, para improvisar.
Now for improvisation,
Se podría improvisar puramente cubano.
you can purely do a Cuban improvisation, Cuban way.
Pero nosotros conocíamos bebop
But we knew bebop,
y habíamos oído a Bob Power.
and we have heard Bob Power.
Entonces podríamos darle un poquito más de fusión,
And we could give it a little bit more fusion.
ligando los dos estilos, el cubano y por el caso del jazz, bebop de Bob Power.
Putting the two styles, the Cuban style and the case of bebop, Bob Power style.
Y a esto poner un poquito de cubano.
And put a little bit of Cuban on this.
Tenemos lo mejor de las dos músicas.
So in this case, we have the best of the two musics.
Del ritmo del tumbado de la música cubana, pero la armonía de jazz con la improvisación de quizás Monk o Bob Power y el tumbado cubano.
The rhythm of the Cuban tumbao with the improvisation from Latin jazz, from
Elementos de Monk, también de Thelonious Monk.
elements of Thelonious Monk.
O de Cecil Taylor.
Or Cecil Taylor.
Ahí podemos decir vale todo.
There we can say everything is worthy. You can do everything.
Yo creo que ya no tengo más que decir.
So I have nothing else to say.
Another introduction into the rhythm, the pattern, here it is. K, when I start to beatbox, the box when I come and rock, yeah, when I come and rock, if it is the vocal box, when I got to rock it, just like this, here it is again, pick it up, slow it down, crowds, I'll remove when I become committed to the groove, and then I got to enter it, so you must say, here it is again, you got to stop, when you want to blow like this, here it is again, K, don't miss when I come off the top of the head. It's all the improvisations. Excuse the way I messed up the syllables. I've been trickling over these words. When I be coming back, have you heard? You better stop the running. It's gonna coming with the sounds, drumming with the funky drummer. Be drumming you in the back, but it's just like that. I be in the back, be in the black. Ease back this off of this when I flip it off it. Who'll be that one flipping over beats and I do have my fun and freaking the way I do it, run right through it. This is the improvisational way I grab the microphone and I say these words. Have you heard say I was up to Havana, Cuba when I used to vacation in Aruba? Not and this is what I do a lot. You when you wave your hands in the air when it's far, when it's wide, when the light, when it's bright. You in my face, and this is how I do it. Take me on the case when I'm running through like fluid. And this is how we got to keep it going. When I got to go, just like the energize, I'm rapping. A bad habit, around me forever. Oh, when I got to record, quite. Here we come when we start the groove. Oh, when we got 'em, oh, it's on the top, you're with it. Pass the pass, to the pass. We got 'em, the pass, to the pass. The pass, to the pass. We got 'em, to hear the words, come, when they come, I get 'em, I got the words, to hear the come, to get 'em, so hear the words, hear the come, to hear the words, hear the words, and here's the words of when they come out the mountain, and that's when they say it out. And this is how we do what we say, you think that we can say it when we get say we got it. So it's the way to start to rock, but when we rock with so much soul. That's when I got the brain, when I got to say what I got to say, what I got to say. I say what I got to say, what I got to say, what I got to say, when I say it. And this is how we rock. And this is how
Like she was trying to do.
Soy cubana y me gusta el guaguancó. Soy cubana y me gusta el guaguancó. ¿Cómo me vas a decir que es una cosa vulgar? vas a decir? Es una cosa vulgar. Yo te enseñaré. Yo te enseñaré un mejor refrán. Que no viene de Congo. Que no viene de Congo. Baila mi guaguancó, baila mi guaguancó. Baila mi guaguancó, baila mi guaguancó, baila mi guaguancó. No baila que no goza, baila mi guaguancó, baila mi guaguancó.
The Computer will perform with my band on June 11th, and we are now giving the computer a personality, a musical personality. That's the hard part. We're giving it the ability to be able to make decisions, to think, to create, to respond, to play. Becomes a band member. In a general way, harmonically, rhythmically, and melodically, certain things that are happening in the sky hook up with certain things that are happening in this program, okay? In order to do that, you have to have some kind of system for defining the sky in terms of music, whatever that means to you. We can't read astronomical stuff all that easy. I mean, we can't figure out where Mars is at any given time or something like that. So it's gonna have to help us in terms of letting us know, what does that mean musically, that Mars is right ascension such and such position. You know, what does that mean? What does that mean musically? What are you going to do musically? That's the equivalent of that, you know. So you see what I'm saying? And then we can play some stuff musically, and then the computer can take it and say, well, what does that mean numerically to me in terms of like what I'm doing and all that. So you really got these different languages going on. And one of the harder parts is trying to figure out, well, how to make these translations smooth, where it just sounds like you're just playing music. The audience don't have to know about all that, you know. I mean, actually, the more successful I am, the worse it is for earcom, because if I'm successful and it just sounds like a normal concert, then people are gonna be like, you know, well, what the fuck, you know, it just sounds like some cats playing, you know. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You know, which is my goal.
There's no mistake to it.
It doesn't have a you know type sound that you might get, you know. It's making its own changes up according to, you know, some parameters I gave it. It's making its own melody, and it has different melody styles too. I got something here that Henry showed me, for example. As you can see it on the screen, it's called Threadgill style. So again, this is just another kind of melodic style. So this is two more melodic styles. If you count the Threadgill melodic style and the other one that I had that was just doing the scale and the random melody, there's like 4 different kind of logic for creating melody. So it has a certain sound to it. If you bring it all the way down here, it's a style called symmetry. So the symmetry thing is the first thing I ever thought about that made some kind of connection with nature to melodically get the shapes of these bees, which are kind of this zigzag kind of shape, you know, the way they flew. They had this kind of pattern, sort of hang and fly, and you know how they fly, you know, have these, you know, and for me visually, I saw them as sort of describing this melody. Birds kind of just fly up and fly down and do these broad sweeps of lines, you know. But these bees, they had this kind of zigzag kind of motion. You have a note, and if you thought of that note as the center of this space, say the axis of this particular space, and then you sort of just had a melody like swirling around those notes. That would be the same as this B swirling around this point in space. Instead of playing like this, for example, okay, which is chords, right? I would have to play and then one note at a time after, which is the same thing. See, these are two notes at a time, or you can play, or you can play, or you can play, or you can play. I worked on this stuff like for years. Worked some of it into my playing, you know, over a period of years and everything. And when I first decided to program, it was this idea that I first wanted to program into the computer, just to hear what the computer would come up with, and some different, just to use as a laboratory to hear some different things that can happen, you know. And the computer showed me some things that I didn't know.
But then I always found there was a sort of a curious divergence with this sort of idea that somehow the African American musician was to perform a certain role with regard to technology, that is to be deliberately ignorant of it, so as to not to sully the pure spirituality, you know. But that's simply a role. We don't have. No one needs to play that role, and that just seemed to me it was a role that was assigned by a group of people, by somebody else, or by people who were really unaware of the technological impact that African people have already had. It seemed to this sort of romanticizing of the faux primitive type thing.
Me and Smitty were on tour with Dave Holland once. George Lewis came to the concert, and he asked us to hang out with him afterwards, and he showed us something that blew my mind. He had this drum machine program that improvised. He had, first of all, just the intelligence of it. You know, his tools was mind-boggling enough. I mean, the cat was building his own MIDI cables. He was building his own analog to digital converters. You know, just that. Seeing the cat do that. But then on top of that, he was playing, and the program was kind of tracking his tempo, or had some idea of what he was doing in terms of slow and fast. You know. And he had taken apart these Apple computers and hooked them up together, and had wires going from one to another. All stuff that you're not supposed to be able to do. All stuff that it wasn't made to do. You know, he had the program following his trombone in some kind of way, and he had a little bass player inside the thing playing bass. You know, this what he called a virtual bass player, and he had a virtual drummer playing drums, playing in swing time, which was something that you really couldn't program drum things to do. I mean, he had names for the thing, like Elvin and stuff like that, like Elvin Jones, you know. And then he had the program playing, and it was improvising. What amazed us was not that the thing sounded like Max Roach or Elvin Jones, you know, because it didn't, you know. What amazed us was that it was improvising at all.
I talked with one musician. He said, when you went to Earcom, you had to prove that you knew what you were talking about, and then they accepted you. I said, well, they never really accepted me. And no one else had to prove they knew what they were talking about. So it seemed to me that the idea was that people who didn't know what they were talking about were helped. And so that's a really different way of engaging with technology. And the notion was that somehow technology was a part of the culture, whereas the idea that somehow technology in its various manifestations somehow injurious to African American culture or African culture is one of the problems that we face in terms of stereotypes. So I think that your use of the internet and you being one of the first people that I knew about to really get into the World Wide Web and to find out what was going on really was a way of making resistance to that kind of, and posing an alternative paradigm, which I found was pretty radical for me, which really inspired, I think, a lot of people, me included.
The original vision is very simple. It's something that is very, very simple. However, not obvious. The working out of the vision is
okay, so if we do this,
extremely difficult as far as I'm concerned.
If we're going from here to here, let me think about this. This is going here. Yeah, he's killing. Or she. It. It sounds like it's listening to his own phrases.
Yeah.
And answering, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you yesterday. As it is really as if she was thinking about what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess it is thinking.
See what this is nice. But what we added today was variability. It doesn't keep the same swing all the time. It changes within a range, within a very small range. So it's a very slight changing its feel. It's like an elastic kind of rubber band thing where it's going back and forth, which is what human beings really do. The overall effect is that it sounds looser. That's the thing. It's a lot of changes to make for just that, but the overall effect is that it now sounds looser because it is looser. It's not playing the same thing all the time. It's not playing the same feel all the time. All this is like the sort of the brother factor that we're putting into the thing. Woo! It's nice. It feels really nice.
How do you relate to that in terms of just what have you heard that reminds you of that? Feel-wise, not structure, you know.
There's one Led Zeppelin too.
Led Zeppelin?
Yes. That one goes.
But now listen, Mother, now you can't interrupt in this, see, cause this is going into the vault. So look, so.
How long you been playing?
Oh. Wait,
Oh, man. I
Baby
don't-
mama, he been playing a long time.
The original.
Huh? How long have I been playing? About 25 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh man, too long to sound like I sound.
No, you sound good.
25 years.
Yeah.
You been playing saxophone that long?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm older than you think I am.
Oh, well, you know all about it.
Yeah.